grandma.
Okay.
All right, meeting's called to order. New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Business Administrator, Board Secretary, has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, communicated to the Hawthorne Press, the Record, and filed with the Clerk of the Borough of Hawthorne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Clavija?
Here.
Ms. Goff?
Here.
Mr. Palouse?
Here.
Mr. Reicher?
Here.
Ms. Sanford?
Here.
Mrs. Sciarra?
Here.
Mr. Farrow? Mr. Turco?
Here.
Mr. Doyle?
Here. Would everyone please rise and join me for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, meeting regulations. During each regular meeting, 2 opportunities are provided for citizens to ask questions and to make comments. During the first opportunity, early on the agenda, the meeting is open to the public for the purpose of addressing items listed for approval on this agenda only. The second opportunity occurs just prior to adjournment, when citizens may address any subject matter that is pertinent to and/or directly related to the operation of the school district. Persons wishing to speak must, upon being recognized, rise, sign in, state their name, address, and subject matter. Comments and questions shall be addressed to the board president or the presiding officer and shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. The board may or may not respond to issues raised by members of the public at the time they are raised, but will provide a response if and when appropriate. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Please note that the board will not respond to comments regarding students or board employees in light of the privacy rights held by those individuals. Moreover, the board discourages comments about such individuals and will not be responsible for such comments. Members of the public who choose to speak during this public session should carefully consider their comments, since they could be held personally liable for any statements they make. Finally, please note that in accordance with district policy, the board will not officially comment or respond to any matter mentioned unless it can confirm that the matter has first been brought to the attention of the appropriate school personnel in an attempt to resolve the issue. That being said, public be heard, agenda items only. All right, seeing no one. Approval of minutes for May 7th.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Al, second by Abby. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Clavija?
Yes.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Palouse?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Ms. Sanford?
Yes.
Mrs. Sciarra?
Yes.
Mr. Farrow? Mr. Turco?
Abstain.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes. All right, student council.
Good evening, everyone. As the 2018-2019 school year comes to a close, student activities are speeding up in Hawthorne High School. The annual spring musical, Bye Bye Birdie, was incredible, with outstanding performances from Nicholas Manzi and Kylie Sciarra, among many others. The school's peer leaders participated in a Teen Summit event where they presented a project promoting a more positive environment for high schools and place sport. The annual scholarship night took place several weeks ago, and the community of Hawthorne was extremely generous to the students, gave everyone a head start on their path for the next 4 years. The math department took their annual trip to Six Flags, and though there was some rain, everyone definitely enjoyed themselves. Mr. Shell organized a group of students to talk with the 7th graders at Lincoln Middle School about our experiences at Hawthorne High School. Mr. Shell showed the students how to keep up with Hawthorne High School events on the social media accounts and highlighted many opportunities available here. May 17th was this year's art show, and the impressive work of all Hawthorne High School students was displayed. Last week, the seniors were presented with a very informative discussion on the dangers of driving and being under the influence of drugs and alcohol, courtesy of the Hawthorne Police Department. Students were encouraged to ask any question. Last week, seniors had their senior trip at Dorney Park. Friday of this week, June 7th, is the prom, which will take place at the Fiesta. In the school library, with a collaboration with the Hawthorne Shade Tree Commission, Hawthorne High School students created artistic pieces focusing on the theme of trees, utilizing the resources and workshops offered in the Makerspace Paint Center. The art pieces were then displayed at the Environmental Commission's evening program on June 10th. On the evening of June 13th, the Library Media Center will host the annual celebration of the publication of the school's literary magazine, The Empyrean, which is created by the Creative Writing Club under the advisorship of Mrs. D. Geronimo. In addition to the hard copy print magazine that is available to any board member of also soon be available online through a link on the high school's homepage. This past month, the programs of Hawthorne High School Library have been featured on Channel 12 News, in the newsletter of the New Jersey Association of School Librarians, and on the School Librarians Workshop Facebook page. Most spring sports have come to a close, with track still continuing onto the meet of champions, with some major in the bow will be throwing javelin. This past Sunday was the Senior Sports Awards, where 48 senior student athletes were recognized for their hard work and dedication. Last night was the Spring Sports Awards, where the student athletes were recognized for their hard work during the spring season. On Sunday, June 2nd, 2019, Heather Bertolo and Coach Shell were both honored by the Patterson Old Timers Association. Lucas Kowalski received the NJSIAA Scholar Athlete Award. Rose Walsh and John Torres received the NJIC Sportsmanship Award. I would like to thank everyone on the Board of Education for having me as a student representative this year. I've learned so much about not only what is happening behind the scenes in my own school, but also in my community. Before attending these meetings, I had no idea the amount of dedication and pride all the members have in serving their community, and it shows in each meeting. I have greatly appreciated learning from all of you and getting to keep everyone updated on the events of Hawthorne High School. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone enjoys their summer and gets a much-needed rest from their hard work this year.
The pleasure's really been ours. I think everybody would agree. I think Mr. Cerrito has a couple words he'd like to say.
Yes, so before I get to my report, I'll jump right in. On the agenda, you will see we have a resolution here, a recognition of our student representative, Elizabeth Fitter, and I'll just quickly read the resolution. Elizabeth Fitter has served as student representative to the board during the 2018-19 school year. It is recommended that the board approve the following resolution of appreciation in honor of Elizabeth. Whereas Elizabeth Fitter has served as a student representative to the Board of Education during the 2018-19 school year, and whereas it has been her responsibility to voice the student perspective to the board at their public meetings, and whereas she has been diligent and conscientious in attending the Board of Education meetings, and whereas she has conducted herself with poise and courtesy while listening attentively to many lengthy discussions pertaining to the governance of the school district. And whereas she has presented thoughtful and informative reports to the Board of Education on issues and events at the high school. And whereas she is a member of the National Honor Society, a member of the Italian Honor Society, and whereas she has participated in class cabinet, share, and Italian club, and whereas she has participated in junior varsity and varsity volleyball. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Hawthorne Board of Education express their gratitude and appreciation to Elizabeth Fitter for her service to the student body and Board of Education, and send her their best wishes for success in all future endeavors. I also have a certificate that we'll be presenting to Elizabeth. Certificate of appreciation. It says in recognition of the valuable contribution made toward the cause of forwarding education in the Hawthorne community as the Hawthorne High School Student Council representative to the Board of Education for the 2018-2019 school year. So Elizabeth. I also want to wish Elizabeth well, as she will be attending USC in the fall. So she's going across the country, but we wish her well at USC. And again, thank you for all you've done on the board. All right? Congratulations. Okay. So as we move forward, just a couple of quick announcements and then we'll get to our presentations tonight. Just a couple of reminders. Number one, just a reminder that we'll be hosting our community forum to discuss the referendum at the Hawthorne Ambulance Corps building on Goffel Road from 9 to 11 this Saturday, June 8th. We encourage anyone with questions about the referendum to attend and learn more about the proposed projects that we'll be moving forward with as part of this referendum should it pass in September. I want to congratulate all our 5th grade students at Roosevelt and as of tomorrow, Washington and Jefferson schools who completed the ROAR program, the Respect, Opportunity, and Responsibility program. Roosevelt already held their culmination ceremony, and Jefferson and Washington have their ceremonies tomorrow morning and afternoon. I was going to say that I look forward to attending the STEM Tank event, which is scheduled for tomorrow, but we just found out today that we are not eligible to attend. It's only the teachers and the students. So unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but it is my understanding that they are going to be recording the event, and they will share the recording with us at the conclusion of it. So we were planning to go and record it ourselves, but we were told that that's not an option. So, but anyway, as soon as we do have that recording, and obviously once we find out the results, and I know Mrs. Pasquale is going to talk about it a little more tonight. But I do want to thank Mrs. Pasquale, Mrs. DiGeronimo, Mrs. Phibbs, and of course the 9 students, and I'll let her explain who they are, who participated, and I look forward to hearing how they did. The board, I did share the PowerPoint that they created with the board as part of my weekly report last week, so hopefully you had a chance to look at it. It was the Eco Carton presentation. If you hopefully you had a chance to look at it. If you didn't, I would encourage you to do so. It's fantastic. I do want to quickly just congratulate Ms. Balsam and the Lincoln Middle School students on a great performance back on April 12th of their annual junior performance. They did a great job. On the sports front, Elizabeth just mentioned that we had another successful spring season, and we honored our spring sports, our student athletes last night. We also had our senior brunch this past Sunday, which is such a nice event for our seniors to kind of wrap up the year. So I want to congratulate not only our seniors, but all of our spring sports student athletes. We also look forward to celebrating our valedictorian, Patrick Rolland, and our salutatorian, Danielle Bonafetti, at our valedictorian salutatorian breakfast on June 12th at the Brownstone. Look forward to that. And one other update, I know Elizabeth mentioned the peer leaders came in 4th in the Teen Summit this year. They also received $500 for coming in 4th, which goes back to the Teen Summit, which they'll use for future projects. One update on that. And with that said, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McMahon and Mrs. Pasquale to talk about our drone club and the roller coaster project. I don't know if you guys want a microphone.
Sure. I just going to get one to read something, and then Mr. McMahon will take over the meeting.
That mic's not on, the other one's on. You can turn that one off.
Good evening, Board of Education members. I stand here before you today to acknowledge the monumental steps that have been taken within the STEM program at Hawthorne High School, and to ensure the fellow administrators, teachers, and students are remembered for their hard work and dedication. I would like to thank our Technology Director, Mr. Brislin, for his aid with the newly formed Drone Club, helping us establish and maintain important connections to ensure that the Drone Club will be a success and our drones could actually be airborne. I would like to thank our visionary principal, Mr. Cunningham, who, when approached by a parent with an amazing opportunity, seized the chance to involve Hawthorne High School in an East Coast STEM competition, which Mrs. Trebona, the Director of Education, I and my colleagues, Mrs. Teresa DiGeronimo, Mrs. Michelle Phibbs, and our students, Marlena Alvino, Sarah Kozrash, Patricia Jacobson, Joshua Kubuski, Alexandra Nadrashvili, Patrick Ola, Michael Ricca, Daniel Sweetman, and Jacqueline Hampson have worked tirelessly on to create an original product to be presented. Finally, I would like to specifically acknowledge my colleague, Mr. Ryan McMahon, for his immense help with what has become a 10-year STEAM-based tradition at Hawthorne High School, the roller coaster project. Mr. McMahon and I have worked intensely with the students in combining physics-based science, innovative technology, roller coaster engineering, creative decorations, and algebra-based mathematics to create the impressive projects that stand before you today. The STEM programs at our schools have never been at such a height, and I want to ensure that all of you notice the great accomplishments that have been made. With that said, I would like to actually I would like to call Joshua Kubuski, the Vice President of the Drone Club, and he will say a few words, and then he will do a 3-minute presentation for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joshua Kubuski, and as you heard, I'm the Vice President of the Drone Club here at Hawthorne High School. I want to tell you a little bit more about our drone program and what we do. So we have beta FPV drones. They're under a half pound, so there's nothing with the FAA or any concerns with air traffic control. And FPV stands for first person view. As you'll see in a little bit, all these drones have a live camera on them. So during flight, they can be operated either via your own site, or you can can use the onboard camera to see your flight as you're going. They are also able to be controlled remotely, or you can control them with a pre-planned flight through our software via FPV again. So you can coordinate with your group a procedure for a multitude of drones and have them fly in formations to perform any kind of task necessary. We received the drones in pieces. Nothing was pre-assembled for us. It came as all parts, just propellers, motors, a breadboard, that kind of stuff. And we assembled everything by hand with the use of an online curriculum that was provided to us by Mrs. Pasquale and Mr. Brislin. Along the way, we encountered challenges configuring the flight simulator software with the drone, but were eventually able to overcome them with the help of the technology department, Mr. Brislin, as well as the providers of the software. And we were able to start accruing hours on the drones for an entire group, able to practice and enjoy the drones and learn from the experience and really benefit from the STEM program. So I'd like to give you a small presentation of just a glimpse of what the drones have to offer as we continue to move forward. I'm going to pass around the monitor here so everyone can experience that FPV view. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get it to connect to the projector, so feel free to pass this as we go. I'll start down here. We're running out of battery. Let's go over to the next one if you'd like.
Good job.
I am not.
Thank you, Josh. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mr. McMahon, and I teach math at the high school with Mrs. Pasquale. So I just want to say a couple of things about the roller coaster projects in general, and then we'll call up the groups one by one, and we'll give them a chance to show off what they've created for you. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the projects are done completely out of school. The students are given a budget and then asked to build a roller coaster from scratch. They have to buy their own materials. So everything you see here, they either found inside one of their parents' garages and then, took, or they went to Home Depot and purchased by themselves. All the roller coasters have to have at least 4 elements: a drop, a clothoid loop, a camelback, and an inversion. Some groups do more than that. We've had a variety of things in the past and this year, including self-propelling elevators, multiple loops, and things of that nature. Every project has to have a theme, and so you can see there are 3 distinct ones here, and then there'll be 13 more distinct ones. We have a total of 16 projects this year that will be on display this Thursday in the courtyard. So obviously anyone who would like to come by and see all the projects is more than welcome to. And we'll be out in hopefully what will be the sunshine, enjoying the day. Before we call the groups up, I would just like to say thank you, even though some of them might not be here, to all the parents who give away their garage space or kitchen space, yes. A variety of tools and dining room tables, spending endless nights worrying about their kids. One of the groups was telling us today that their dad broke into a nervous panic because he went out, and then their daughter called and said, "How do you turn on the tables?" So, yeah, exactly. So, we understand how worrying it is, but it's nice for the kids to have a physical product of something that they created and can be proud of. And I'd also like to thank Mrs. Pasquale for allowing me to give up so much of my free time to be able to go and see these projects. Her and I do spend a lot of time going to the houses to make sure the projects are going well and help the kids out. And I know I like to make jokes, but this wouldn't be possible without her. Okay, this was her brainchild a number of years ago, and when I got to the high school, she brought me on board. And as much help as I try to provide, it wouldn't be possible without her. So let's bring up the first group. So we'll have, we'll just start from the front and work our way back, so we'll do one group at a time. Okay, so the first group here is office theme. So we have Brianna Brislin, Anthony Lamone, Jenna Ventris, and Cameron Brandt. So, Jenna, you're holding the microphone there, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your project?
Hi, I'm Jenna. So, our favorite show is The Office. So we decided to try to take elements from the show, like memorable moments or like iconic things, and try to represent them in our project.
Okay, why don't you show us how it works a little bit? You chose it. It's okay. Should I talk so that it doesn't feel uncomfortable? So why don't you guys, someone tell us about your favorite part of the project? Cam, why don't you tell us, did you create anything on the project that you're especially proud of?
So, my favorite part of the project is obviously Dwight Schrute's beet farm, because I made all the leaves out of tissue paper. It's very time consuming, and I was very glad to get it done, but I am proud of it as well.
And last question, do you guys have any surprises planned for Thursday?
We're dressing up as some of the characters. Yeah, we're gonna dress up as some of the characters from the show. We put some of them on here, just to see. I'm gonna be him right here. His name's Jim. Brianna's gonna be Angela, right there. Cameron is gonna be Dwight. And then, where's Pam? Pam is right here. That's just gonna be Jenna. And Danny Garrell, he's not here tonight, but he's gonna be Michael Scott, which is right there.
Yeah, Dan Garrell is also in this group. He's at the band dinner currently. We'd also like to give a shout out to his father for dropping the project off at approximately 5:15 this afternoon before depositing his brother's pickup truck back at the train station so he could get home from work. All right, thank you guys. All right, so the next group will be the group in the middle. That's the frozen one. So we have Patricia Jacobson, Callie McCarthy, Joshua Gabuski, Nikki Jo Sokolowski and Nicole Sparito.
So obviously our theme is Frozen, and it's very large. We have a pinball as our marble. And then our main part of it, so we start with an inversion, which is usually very different. And then it comes down, loops around, and then we have this piece, which will change the tracks at 2 different times. So the first time, it'll come down the middle track, which you'll see. And then after it does that, it'll switch based on the light, and then it'll go down the first track.
So a little bit more about our transition here. This is all based off of train technology. So as your train goes, there are things called switches along the way where it'll shift from one track to the next. We stole a little bit of inspiration from there, and also a little bit of inspiration from brake beam technology. So as the ball goes past, we sense the difference in the light being detected by our photoresistors here right next to our switch. And it causes the circuit board to trigger the relay, initiating the motor to spin the ball, spin the fin, pushing the ball on one track or the other. And this is all controlled independently by a microcomputer called an Arduino, and it also has a live readout over here, providing us information on the progress of the ball, as well as temperature and humidity, which seems to be a constant factor that changes how the track performs.
Approximately how high would you say that first drop for your project is?
It is 6 feet tall, so the height of me, basically. Any more questions?
No. Appreciate the information on how tall you are.
Just for reference, you know.
That's always good. Thank you. It was very helpful. Last one, Nikki Jo, and then we'll call up the last group. Excellent, thank you guys. And then we have one more group in the back. So we have Serena Ray, Danielle Diascoli, Gabriella Barbarisi, and then did Marley have to leave? Okay, and then Marlene Alvino and Michael Patak, I believe, are at the band dinner. So, Serena, why don't you tell us a little bit about your project?
Okay, so right from the beginning, we knew we wanted to do a Disney theme because we kind of grew up on Disney and we wanted everyone to recognize it easily. So we had Danielle draw Walt Disney so that everyone could easily recognize it. And right from the beginning, we knew that we wanted to have it run automatically by itself. So Michael's not here because he had to go to a band dinner, but we had him install a conveyor belt that runs on magnets. So some of the groups use a glass ball, but ours uses a metal ball because in the back, it's hidden, so you can't see it at all times. It's picked up by the metal ball is picked up by the magnet, and then it's carried up, and at the top there's a small contraption that disconnects the ball from the magnet. So it takes a minute, but it's getting there. We're getting there. So a little bit about this. The entire thing is basically chicken wire and paper mache over it. So there, it's going. Sometimes at the bottom. So problem solving throughout the entire thing was based on the track when it goes around the inversion. We had to change certain sides to be higher than others so that it wouldn't fall off. So I noticed we had to do that most of the time. And then in the front we have the Lion King, Cars, Cinderella's Castle, and this is the tower from Rapunzel. Let's go with cats.
Do you have any special moments you'd like to tell us about that were extremely joyous?
Okay, so the garage that we worked in, Marley, she's at a band dinner, and she has a dog, and we were working with the garage open, and there were turkeys outside, and the dog decided to chase the turkeys, so we had to run after the dogs. Down the street. Down the street. I was still holding the drill that I was working with. It's fine. There it goes. Again.
Approximately how tall would you say your roller coaster is?
The first drop is 4 feet, and then we went down on 10-inch increments until the inversion.
How tall is the witch's hat up there?
I mean, it looks kind of, they're probably around 6 feet.
Would you say it's as tall as Callie McCarthy?
They're just a little bit over.
A little bit over? Okay.
Let's go. And it works on a switch motor, so it's just 2 batteries and the switch connected to it.
You have a story?
If you have a story you'd like to share, then I'm sure Zarina would be happy to give you the microphone so you can share it.
Do you have a story?
Oh, the poem story.
Outside the car. Oh yeah, it's a good story.
It's great. Yeah, so far it's a great story. We're really enjoying it. Before you start, thank you girls in the back. Okay, Nicole, go ahead.
Okay, so at first to build we did it differently obviously, but we wanted like a mountain. So we were gonna make it like the height of the first post, which is 6 feet. So me, Callie, and Patty go to Home Depot, we're gonna buy like a big piece of foam. So we get it cut to like the right measurements. It was 6 feet. I was driving like a small car, so definitely not big enough to fit the big 6 feet thing of foam. So we get to the car, it's like drizzling. It's like probably like 8 o'clock at night, it's like getting dark. So we decide to hold it on top of the roof with our hands as we're driving home from Home Depot. So we're driving home holding a piece of foam, and it starts pouring like so hard. It's dark and you can't see. We're driving like so slow, we don't want to fly off. Callie lets go because it's so slippery, we can't hold on to it. So Patty's holding it like vertically in the air, driving over Home Depot in the pouring rain. So then we're like, okay, I need an extra hand. So I hold it onto it too with them as I'm driving my other hand. And we made it. We got back to Callie's house and the rain had stopped as we got back. So yeah, and then ended up not even using that piece of foam. So that was it.
Thank you for sharing those unsafe driving practices. Yeah, we're good. Do you want them to be able to come in?
Well, we're going to take it first.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a 10-minute recess, everybody. 10-minute recess, and then we'll resume. All right, whoever's staying, if you can take your seats, we're going to get the meeting going. Good job, guys.
Bye, guys. Great job. Great job, guys.
Drive home safely, please.
Wear your seatbelt. And then you're going to stab me and go on. Come on, losing it.
Home safely, everybody.
I said now we can rewatch that story over and over. And laugh and laugh.
How are you finding it?
What a life lesson.
You can't say it's for the roller coaster problem.
Exactly. I couldn't see it till the say, okay, no problem.
I took it to Home Depot, store in the house. I went to the car on purpose.
So they did it.
She comes out, she's like, can I have the car? What car?
Your credit card.
Like, can you borrow it? It's
Right,
like,
exactly. So do they think about where they're like,
Specifically ask them, but I'm sure if they have something really sense of kind of thing.
All right, we're back on the record. We're going to move on to curriculum and instruction, please, Abby.
Pursuant to the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Committee on Curriculum and Instruction recommends the following resolutions. CI 1 through CI 7 on page 4, CI 8 through ATH 16 on page 5, ATH 17 on page 6. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Carino. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Palooz?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Ms. Sanford?
Yes.
Ms. Sciarra?
Yes.
Mr. Taro? Mr. Turco?
On CIA, yes with reservation, yes on everything else.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes. I'll be right back to you, please, for personnel.
The following resolutions are pursuant to the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. P18 through P22 on page 6, P23 through P27 on page 7, P28 through P31 on page 8, P32 through P34 on page 9, and on the addendum, P47 through P54. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Palooz?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Ms. Sanford?
Yes.
Mr. Sciarra?
Yes.
Mr. Taro? Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes. Tanya, Finance and Administration, please.
Pursuant to the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Committee on Finance and Administration recommends the following resolutions. F35 and F36 on page 9, F37 through A41 on page 10, and A42 on page 11. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Ms. Sanford?
Yes.
Mr. Sciarra?
Yes.
Mr. Taro? Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Palooz?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes. Mr. Palooz, claims, please.
In accordance with the NJAC 6A, :23-2, :11, B, C, 3, and C4. I reviewed the bills for June. Everything seems to be in order, and I recommend that we approve the list.
Second?
Any discussion on the bills? Roll call, please.
Ms. Sanford?
Yes.
Mr. Sciarra?
Yes.
Mr. Taro? Oh, actually, sorry. Mr. Turco?
Yes with reservation on 2875 and 2290. Yes on everything else.
2875 and
I believe it's 2292. Unless Mike brought that wrong number.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Palooz?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes. Buildings and grounds, Mike.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Committee of Buildings and Grounds recommends the following resolution on page 12, BG 44 through 46, and on the goldenrod addendum on page 15, BG 54. On behalf of the committee, I so. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sciarra?
I will, with reservations on BG 46, yes on all others.
Mr. Taro absent. Mr. Turco?
Yes with reservation on BG 46. Yes on all others.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Palooz?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Ms. Sanford?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes. Moving on to committee reports. Alex, negotiations.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you're aware, we are we're negotiating with the last unit in the cycle. That unit is the administrative assistants, formerly known as the secretaries unit. We've met once. We've exchanged ground rules and our initial proposals. We're scheduled to meet at some point in the future, and we will keep you posted as we continue progressing.
Great, thank you. Real quick on the referendum committee, we have completed our tour. We've presented at every school, hit all the PTOs, very positive response. We, as Mr. Sfrito has spoken earlier and mentioned, we have a public engagement plan for this Saturday, 9 to 11, June 8th, over at the ambulance corps, intersection of, what is that, Goffel and, right, not Goffel.
Goffel Road, yes.
Goffel Road. We're also looking into, we've been contacted by several individuals who are interested in helping get the word out on the referendum and share information, so we're coordinating with them. Just keep one foot in front of the other. That's all I have to report on the referendum. Moving on to curriculum and instruction. Abby, please.
The CNI committee met on the 29th of May. The first item of business to discuss was the presentation for this evening, the roller coasters and the drone club. Unfortunately, the Pasta Bridge did not present this evening. Additionally, as Mrs. Pasquale said, the roller coasters will be on display Thursday instead of tomorrow when they normally would be because of the steam tank competition. The steam tank competition is taking place in a hotel by Newark. Sorry for the ambiguity, I didn't have more specific information. Tomorrow, and the students may earn possible internships from the experience. The next order of business was to discuss the departmentalization of 5th grade at the elementary schools. So teachers will now be teaching in teams of math and language arts. Students will be taught 100-minute blocks of each content area each day. The times were rearranged to be more equitable. Previously, it was much heavier on the language arts side. Students will remain in their home classroom for the majority of the day and only regroup for math or language arts, depending on which home teacher that they have and which school that they're in. So Roosevelt will have 2 math teachers and 2 language arts teachers. Jefferson and Washington will have 1 math teacher and 1 language arts teacher. Next, we did not get the NJTSS grant, unfortunately. That was supposed to help us roll out the RTI program that we're using for our intervention tiered system of supports. We will, however, work to internally supply whatever training was needed. We're still working to figure that out. The state did send us a list of things that they would have supplied us, and we're working to figure out how we can supply that for ourselves. We also talked about summer assignments. Mr. Cunningham has worked tirelessly, so as Mrs. Tribona, we are very thankful to them. The main focus of the summer assignments will be on math and language fluency. English non-AP classes will read a book, and then they will come in prepared to do some sort of project upon return in September. AP languages, did I not write that down? Oh, the AP assignment will be modeled after the open-ended questions on the actual AP exam. So it will be focused on data interpretation, review the skills needed, and will also be graded against the AP rubric whenever possible. Math, non-AP, will work on fluency, and in the elementary schools and the middle school, they will continue to do the same assignment. With the exception of 8th grade, they will have 1 specific book that they need to read. No longer be offered the option, I guess. And then we concluded with the same referendum update that Mr. Doyle shared with us this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, any updates on policy?
No policy.
No policy, okay. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Question on the report. If someone could just fill me in on what the NJTSS grant is, and a couple questions on it. I don't know what it is. Have we ever applied for it before? Do we know why we didn't qualify for it this time?
So the state offered all districts to apply for something called New Jersey Tiered System of Supports. And as Abby mentioned, it was related to implementing some, like an RTI model, as Abby mentioned.
I don't know what RTI is.
It would take a long time to explain all of that, but basically it would provide some supports for our younger or elementary students within the school day, not necessarily outside the classroom, but within the classroom, a little bit outside the classroom. So anyway, we applied for it this year. We did not qualify. They didn't tell us why we didn't qualify. They just said we didn't We didn't receive the grant, we weren't chosen, is basically what they said. But they said that they provided some materials that they would do with us if, basically, here are some resources that you can use if you want to implement it yourself. It's the second year, I believe, of this NJTSS grant. Last year, we didn't apply last year. We felt this year that we were ready to apply for it. We did. Unfortunately, we did. So we're going to try to implement it on our own with the resources that we have, that they've given us, with our own internal staff. That's what we're looking at now, as Abby mentioned. So, you know, it's unfortunate. We were excited about it. To be honest. Get some, it was a multi-year grant where they would provide training over multiple years. I don't know if they'll open it up again next year. If they do, we'll apply again.
It's the most disappointing is you don't know why and what you need to do if you want to apply again. I do know one factor that was mentioned, Mr. Ballmer mentioned, that there was a much greater amount of applicants this year. There's a huge increase in the amount of people applied, so that, I'm sure that factors in as well. As a reason they didn't.
The state really pushed it this year. Last year they rolled it out, but they didn't push it as much as they did this year. I mean, they pushed it at all of our county meetings. They really encouraged people to participate. So we did. Unfortunately, they just sent us an email and said you weren't selected.
Right.
So.
Mike, just to be clear, the grant was not for money, it was not a monetary
Correct.
grant, it was for training.
Training,
So it
yeah,
is
that's
possible that they could, I mean, they can only train so many people in one academic
Right.
year. So it probably is what Mr. Doyle said, that they can't overpromise the PD.
Right.
So they did send us links to how we can get started on our own to train. So we're looking internally to see how we can get that off the ground.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Any other questions on that? All right. Anthony, let's take a look at HEF, CPAC, PTOs, and family engagement.
All right, thank you. We'll start off with family engagement. I spoke to the fellow members, and we're going to continue to work together over the next few months. You know, with the summer coming, we're still going to communicate and try to be ready to hit the ground running come September. Hopefully, we'll be able to continue to move forward, encouraging family engagement. Moving on to PTOs. At this time, we're at the end of the year. I just really want to take the time to thank everybody who gets involved. The PTO presidents, all the members. They're basically families that are dedicating their time for each one of their schools. And on behalf of each school, I just want to thank you all for dedicating your time and helping each school raise money and improve education. And thank you to PTOs. Moving on to CPAC, also want to thank Dr. Elmetta Hooper and Robin Crawford, who are co-presidents. Dr. Hooper has been there for a long time, doing all the hard work that she does along with everyone else. Audrey Mioli, who's the vice president, and the treasurer, Liz Elwood, along with everybody else who helps them. They recently had their color run, and it wasn't as successful as it has been in the past. But I believe they were still able to raise about $5,000. It seems the last couple of years, the weather has been really playing a major part. It rains every year. May seems to be the new April. So they're actually considering finding another month that they may do this. So I'll keep you posted as we move further. Again, it's just preliminary discussions. I'm going to try to scroll through my phone here and see what else we have coming. But again, I think it was about $5,000. At their July 10th meeting, they will discuss district projects and programs that they will be dedicating that money towards. And they're hoping that it will be a sizable amount this year. Again, that's July 10th. They also wanted us to know that they commissioned the Bear Cave, which I think is a really great idea. The students with the Bear Cave actually created the shirts for the event this year, and I think it was about $1,500 worth of orders that they placed through the Bear Cave.
That's awesome.
That's another great thing. So again, I want to thank CPAC for all their hard work and all their volunteers that dedicate their time. I'm not done with them yet. Friday ends the Ronald McDonald Community Service Project, where we're saving the caps off of the cans. So if you have any more caps at home, please bring them in by Friday. The winning school and students will be announced at the June 14th meeting for CPAC. Moving on to HEF, again, thanking everybody who dedicates their time. Jennifer Doyle, President, Megan Craven, and Paul DeLuca. It's a hard task for 3 dedicated women and very few other volunteers that help out, but they did another great job with the food truck festival, and they were able to raise a decent amount of funds there. Sorry, let me just scroll through here. Okay, they unfortunately had other engagements tonight, but they wanted me to just read this on behalf of the Education Foundation. We would like to present the Board of Education with a check in the amount of $8,000, which I think we're holding right there. This money was raised primarily for the K through 12 STEM program in our schools. We are very proud to give this substantial amount of money to the Hawthorne Public Schools. Also, teacher grants have been reviewed, and HEF has allotted $3,000 to assist teachers and administrators in the efforts of building strong learning classrooms in our district. I think that will conclude my report. Thank you very much.
Yeah, by all means.
If I could just add a couple of things. I do have the check, and we want to thank HEF for their $8,000 donation. Prior to the Food Truck Festival, Mrs. Doyle reached out to myself and Mrs. Trebona. Mrs. Trebona provided some of the suggested materials that I should be buying. So this money will be divided up between our research and exploration courses, the elementary level, our STEM class in the middle school, and our new STEM class here at the high school. So thank you to HEF, and I also want to thank them for the $3,000 for the mini grants for the staff, the administrators and the staff members at each school. That does, every little bit helps, and we appreciate their support and their hard work to raise this money. So, Ms. Engel, there's $8,000.
All right, moving on. Mike, Buildings and Grounds, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Building and Grounds Committee met on May 29th, and the following items were discussed. We have now purchased a gasoline bus, 54 passenger. It was decided that we would go with gasoline opposed to diesel. It was less expensive, and it was felt it was less issues when repairs and issues come up. Another item on our agenda was the lifts at Lincoln Middle School updated. They started working on the lifts. The old lifts have been removed, and the new ones are being installed, and we're waiting the inspections. Flooring at the high school main office and nurse's office. Over the summer, we're going to move the offices around. Principals, assistant principals, administration, and conference room will have carpet in the main office and tile in the nurse's office. This will come out of the B&G budget, so it's not going to be coming out of our capital or anything like that. A new lawnmower. Our old lawnmower, which is back from 2002, quite old, needed to be replaced. We're replacing it with a Toro Grandstand. This is not only just a lawnmower, it's a multi-purpose machine. So it will snow plow, it will actually have a snow broom. It will have a leaf blower and a lawn mower. And this will also come out of the B&G budget. We're also going to be in the process of doing some concrete pads at the high school in Jefferson. The high school will be where the weight room entrance is, and we'll do some patching and getting quotes for the Jefferson stairs. And if you looked at them, you know what we're talking about. And that concludes my report. Thank you. Nothing on the New Jersey School Board.
Nothing on school. Any questions, anybody? You go. Thank you, Mike. Moving on to Finance Administration and Legislative. Tanya, please.
The Finance Administration team had met on Wednesday the 29th as well. We discussed just several things. The lifts at the schools were one of the things. The 2 have been completed, and tonight on our resolutions, we approved the money to complete the remaining 4. We talked about the end of the year balances. They're currently being sorted out, and we'll be determining which account they'll go into, how much will go into each account. Tonight we approved that up to $500,000 could go into maintenance, and up to $500,000 go into capital. For the referendum, we discussed the process. Paperwork is currently in Trenton for that. We are, as we had mentioned before, still going around town and spreading the word. We did discuss that the interest rates are at a low, which is beneficial to our potential bond sale if the referendum passes. That's it for finance administration. For legislative, there have been a couple updates. On Thursday, May 23rd, the General Assembly approved 2 measures that will now head to the Senate. The first one is A 3395, which is the anti-subcontracting measure. This concerns subcontracting agreements entered into by public school districts and county colleges and places several burdensome and expensive hurdles in the way of districts seeking to outsource non-instructional programs and services. As you can tell, the school board is not a fan of this one. Specifically, the bill imposes conditions and requirements on any school district considering subcontracting of non-instructional services and personnel, such as paraprofessionals, food services, pupil transportation, custodial services, buildings, and grounds. School board has argued that taxpayers and students would be harmed by these requirements by essentially taking the subcontracting option off the table. Boards of education will be forced to consider other alternatives to balance their budgets, such as cuts in programs and teachers, etc. The other one they also strongly oppose is A3664. It's binding arbitration and support staff. That would establish tenure-like protections for school district support staff and subject the Board of Education's personnel decisions to costly, protracted challenges through binding arbitration. If enacted, the legislation would grant a non-teaching staff member the right to submit to binding arbitration virtually any disciplinary action taken by a Board of Education against the individual. This essentially grants these staff members tenure-like employment security that takes their certified staff counterparts 4 years of satisfactory performance in the classroom to earn. There are a couple bills headed to the governor's desk. There's a child abuse hotline. These bills have passed the houses of legislature and are headed to the governor. The child abuse hotline requires the Board of Education to promptly display information about the New Jersey Department of Children and Families State Central Registry, a toll-free hotline for reporting child abuse in each school of the district. The health physical education endorsement requirement requires that teachers appointed to teach health and physical education or physical education in grades K through 6 possess appropriate endorsement to their instructional certificate. Sexual abuse and assault awareness would require each school district to incorporate age-appropriate sexual abuse or assault awareness and prevention education in grades preschool through 12. Child trafficking awareness and prevention requires the New Jersey Department of Education to develop and distribute to school districts guidelines concerning child trafficking. Lactation rooms in public buildings require certain public facilities and offices to provide an on-site lactation room, and for the New Jersey Department of Health to provide information about lactation room availability. This legislation does not mandate that school districts make lactation rooms available in school facilities. Student eye exam requirement directs the state boards of education to require each child aged 6 and under who is entering a public preschool, public school, or a Head Start program for the first time to have a comprehensive eye exam completed by an optometrist or ophthalmologist. And then there are 2, I think, that have passed General Assembly, or 3, sorry, that have passed General Assembly and now moving to the Senate. Pre-expulsion INR services require that in the event that a student has experienced multiple suspensions, or in the event that he may be subject to a proposed expulsion, the principal must convene a meeting as soon as practicable between the student and a school psychologist. The psychologist would meet, if not a psychologist, a school counselor to determine, identify any behavior or health difficulties experienced by the student, and if appropriate, to provide the student with supportive interventions or referrals to resources. The second one is strengthening gifted and talented education. Establishes various school district responsibilities in educating gifted and talented students. And the final one is a new anti-bullying task force. Establishes an 11-member task force to examine, evaluate, and make recommendations regarding the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. 8 members of the task force will have a background or special knowledge of the legal, policy, educational, social, or psychological aspects of bullying in public schools. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Tony. Lou, I'm sorry, questions?
No, I don't have a question, but I just want to add one thing to Tanya's report. This path to progress from Governor Sweeney that he's trying to put into the budget is going to affect every single teacher in the whole state. They want to get it into the regular budget June 30th. There's like 20 different proposals in it to make all school districts K through 12. They want all new teachers. They're only going to be able to put up to $40,000 into the pension, and then after that to go into a private fund. There's 20 of these things that are in here, and they're saying if this doesn't go into the budget, that possibly next year, everybody in the whole state is going to vote on this if they don't get it put into this budget. So it's very tough, you know, on teachers. They want to put all teachers in the state health plan, everybody, no matter what plan you're in. And I would advise everyone, take a look at that because it's tough, you know, for people who are public workers. And like I said, they're threatening if it doesn't get put in this year's budget, then next year they want to put it out to a vote and have the public vote on this. And, you know.
You talking about Sweeney's bill?
Yes.
I think my understanding of that is that the bill is going to be on a ballot for 2020. And tied to that is reducing the number of districts in the state down to about 300.
Correct.
Yeah, so many of them, for instance, Haledon, Prospect Park, North Haledon would become a regional district. And I think that's all tied to what you're saying.
But a lot of things in this, it's a big bill in the path to progress. He's trying to get a lot of it put, into the budget June 30th.
Really, I didn't read that.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, it's a big thing that he wants to get it put in this year's budget. If not, he's threatening that then we'll put it out to constitutional amendment, a public vote, and then people will be voting on teachers' pensions, whether basically the pension is going to remain funded or not. Because they're saying if you're a brand new teacher under this plan, up to 40,000, you can put in the pension. After that, we'll find a private fund for you. And this is in light of the state already not funding the teacher's pension. That this, I don't know how long it will.
I think it's also though for people with 5 years of service or less.
Yes.
That's what they're going to start with.
Right.
Those who are there now or have the 5 years will be grandfathered. It's my understanding.
I'm just
And
bringing,
that could be wrong.
I'm just bringing
You're
it
right.
up.
Something is
No,
definitely
I'm just
coming
bringing it
up.
up because if it's not in the budget, it's
Yeah.
going to be something all of us at one point, possibly, like you said, that's what they're proposing. If they can't get it passed in the budget, then they're going to put it out to, you know, a public vote. So it's just something, you know, to keep an eye on. I think there's going to be more and more in the news, you know, about it. And honestly, it creates a tough climate for every single public teacher in the whole state. You pay into your pension the whole career, and then the money, there might not be any money there by the time you retire.
The question I have on it, is it all or nothing? Is it one large bill, or is it individual components that make it up? I read the one that you mentioned about breaking up the districts. So is it just one massive?
It's one large bill. I think there's over 20
There's
different
a bunch of things
recommendations
that
in
come
it.
it. Yes.
Is it all or nothing? Is that the way it's being put forward?
Yeah. And they're saying if everything does not get put into the budget, then whether it's going to happen or not, they're proposing, well, let the public go vote on it then. Some people will be voting on basically your pension, if it's sustainable or not. It's just something to keep an eye on, because I think it's going to be more and more in the news, and it affects, you know, our entire staff. It's going to affect every single teacher.
I'm just surprised that we haven't heard enough on it, right? I mean, other than the conversation and that email that shared at some point. You know, I would just think that if it's, you know, it seems like it has such large consequences.
June 13th, there's going to be a rally in Trenton, and they're going to try to have 10,000 or 15,000 teachers there for the rally, so we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Lou, we got anything for Pacific
Nothing,
County
sir,
School
I'm sorry.
Boards? Nothing? Okay. All right, moving on, public be heard. Anybody?
Sorry, I'm going to hand out some of my roll up. I'll just read it out loud. Just put it on the record.
Thank you.
Just give us your name and address. Make it official.
Thank you.
Sorry, Paul.
Thank you.
All you blind people have little small letters. I can't see them, so. That's why I get to read along.
Hold it out. There you go.
So, I'll just read this and then I'll give you any more information I have. My name is Chris Smith. My wife Jessica and I moved to Hawthorne in 2006. We have 2 boys, a 7th grader at Lincoln Middle School and a sophomore at Hawthorne High School. Both of our boys have participated in the youth sports programs, middle school athletics, and our 7th grader will join his brother and compete for Hawthorne High School. My wife and I, as do many other parents, have been and remain active in all levels of athletics through organizing, coaching, supporting, and fundraising. It is my belief that athletic competition on all levels, in particular at the scholastic level, is an extension of the classroom and learning environment. The lessons learned in the arenas of competition will be carried with these young men and women for the rest of their lives. Students voluntarily commit themselves to their respective sports and don Hawthorne uniforms while representing their fellow students in the township of Hawthorne. Their commitment is no different than any commitment made by any student in any activity outside of the core requirements for graduation. All of these students should be commended for their commitment. The Hawthorne School District does their best in committing to their students, which allow them to achieve excellence in many areas. I am respectfully asking the Hawthorne Board of Education for another commitment. Approximately 4 years ago, a group of parents, through monetary donations, refurbished the weight room in the high school. These parents not only solicited donations, but also did the actual work, which was valued in excess of $55,000. Some of these parents did not even have children attending Hawthorne High School at the time. Since the completion of the weight room, there has been very limited time available for student athletes or any student to have access to the weight room. These student athletes and students must seek out a facility, transport themselves, and pay to strength training. It is my understanding that for student athletes to be able to use the weight room, their respective head coach or assistant coach must monitor the room. If you are a student athlete whose head coach is unavailable, or simply a student that wishes to strength train, they will have very limited, if any, access to the weight room. In school with a student body in which there are many who may not have the wherewithal to find a location, the access to the Hawthorne High School weight room should be an option. Strength and conditioning is paramount for athletic success, injury prevention, self-esteem, team bonding, and general overall health and fitness. In a time where childhood obesity and the sedentary lifestyle, i.e. Xbox, of our youth is ever increasing, another option for all students should be made available. The weight room or fitness center should be available to all students of Hawthorne High School. With that would come the need to have a monitor in the weight room. During my research of the surrounding districts, many of which are similar in size to Hawthorne, I discovered many high schools open a weight room or fitness center for the entire student body at least 4 days a week after or before school. This includes a summer schedule. For example, Boda High School has a sign posted indicating that their room is open from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. The room is no greater than Hawthorne floor. After speaking with the Boda coach, I learned that 3-step stipend is paid per season: winter, spring, summer, and fall, and that room is required to be open at the posted times. However, the room is often open longer hours if the monitor or another coach chooses to stay later. Another example is Riverdale, whose room is also equivalent in size to Hawthorne's. Their room is also accessible to all students throughout the year, including the summer. As per Riverdale Education Association contract, there's a head strength and conditioning coach, as well as a per-hour rate for monitoring the weight room. Waldeck and Ramsey districts have stipends for weight room supervision in their contracts as well. These schools and many others compete with Hawthorne on a yearly basis and are of similar group size. The compensation of the weight room fitness center monitors range from hourly pay to a seasonal stipend of approximately $2,000. A yearly cost of between $8,000 and $10,000 will be required for a monitor. Some of these districts have a strength and conditioning coach for all sports at similar cost. Respective of the value of the donated time, material, and manpower, the cost of this request is a very fair deal for the district and the students. I have spoken with many parents who have students involved in a variety of athletic and non-athletic extracurricular activities. We're all in agreement that the ability for the students to have access to the weight room or fitness center can only be positive. We respectfully ask the Hawthorne Board of Education to create a position to provide compensation to allow all of our students access to the weight room or fitness center throughout the year. This small investment into our students has the ability to provide big dividends for a young men and women. So, I guess it's pretty self-explanatory. Just again, during my research, a lot of these districts have, or most of these districts that we compete against, have weight rooms that their students and athletes can have access to. There's a guy I know in town who monitors the Bergen Field weight room every day. And to quote him, he says the Bergen Field has jacked band in Bergen County because the kids come there, the weight was used, and it's his pay is similar to what I saw in other contracts. I guess what I said in what I wrote is pretty much explains everything. I mean, any questions?
Mr. President, I got a question.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your presentation. About how many students do you know would be utilizing the weight room as it was made available?
At this point, it'd be unknown.
Because,
no, because as far as I know, the weight room has never been open. Like as a free weight weight room or like free gym. Or even I know some of these other districts they have a weightlifting club that I know there's different clubs that they have in the school here. It's an Italian club, Spanish club, all sorts of stuff like that. So they use they make the weight room as a club, and they'll pay somebody to monitor to be the proctor of that club. So to answer your question, I don't know how many students would come to the weight room.
how many of them do you know that would be?
I know one would, my son. But I've talked to probably about 10 different parents of different sports, cheerleading parents also. We're all looking for kind of an agreement with looking for a way to get these kids in the weight room, give them access to weight room. I understand that the sports teams have their team lifts, and again, like using Pagoda, I sat down and spoke to the Pagoda coach for several hours about this, and he basically said that from 3 to 4:30, anyone can come in, and then after 4:30, someone will stay. It's one of the coaches will stay if kids want to continue to live.
I have a question, Mr. Sprigo. Who currently has access to the weight room?
So the way it works right now, they use the weight room during the day in phys ed class at times.
Okay.
And then after school, the teams, depending on the season, certain teams will use that weight room after school at varying times. I mean, it's not I can't say it's every single day, but they do use it. I know in the fall, the football team uses it. I know even the soccer teams go in there. I know in the winter, the track team does use it quite a bit, especially winter track, because some days they can't go outside, so they use the weight room. And in the spring, again, it varies. The track team does use it a little bit with lacrosse, but
I don't think lacrosse used it at all.
Yeah.
Nick's been on lacrosse this year, and I don't think he's ever been in the weight room.
so, it depends on the coach and the season, but it varies. Wrestling,
And
it doesn't.
And it's not open to all students.
It is not. We did try that a couple of years ago. Angelo Ganeri, we paid him to be a site supervisor in the mornings, and we did not have a large response, if at all. There were days when nobody was there. So
It'd be hard to get kids in there at 7 a.m.
we disbanded it, but the afternoon is a little more challenging because of the teams that use it. And it's, I mean, if the football team's in there, you're talking 30 kids, it's not that big of a room. And the other challenge, here's the other challenge. You have to hire somebody separately because the coaches have expressed their concern that they are responsible for the kids on their team. And they're going to supervise the kids on their team. Now, if other kids come in, they're not really responsible for those kids at that time. And let's just say hypothetically other kids come in while they're working out. Well, they decide, okay, we're going to leave the weight room and go down to the field and start our practice. Now there's nobody in the weight room to supervise the kids who are there. So you have to hire somebody separately. You couldn't have the coaches do it. And they've expressed concern about it. Mr. Mazak has talked to them about it. Their concern is, if I want to go in there for half an hour and a kid wants to stay for an hour, now what happens?
How do they currently book the room? Like, how do you know if there are several sports in the fall that want to use it? How do the coaches?
I think they just coordinate. To be honest with you, I don't know exactly how that's done. I think they just coordinate amongst themselves.
I guess really what I'm talking about is the off season when kids aren't, when they're season, when they're not in season, having access to where to train off-season or pre-season. I know that I don't know if the team's going in there when they have, for example, football lift or soccer lift, is that considered like an official practice? Is that, I don't know if or if the coaches are.
During the season?
Or even in preseason, would that be, is that considered practice? In other words, if other students went in there, I know you'd said that the coaches were concerned, and valid point there, but would other students be competing on, say, an official practice, or is it just a team thing?
I don't think their issue is impeding on the practice. I think the concern is if they're supervising their team and they're going to work out, as I said, hypothetically, they're going to work out for 30 minutes and the students want to stay for an hour and a half. Now who's watching those kids? So that was the concern. It wasn't, I don't think the concern was that they're interfering with what their kids and their team are doing. It was just, you'd have to hire someone separately.
Well, and I guess that's really what my whole point is to have something every day, regardless of who's there, whether, say for an hour and a half, if half the football team's in an hour and a half, anyone else can come in too, or if they want to live for half an hour, have another hour for anyone else to live. I guess that's really my point.
Mr. Doyle, a question?
Sure.
In your research, were there limits to occupancy in these other school districts or fire codes? I mean, how many kids are allowed at a given time for one person? Tell me.
Well, no, I do not. I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know anything about fire codes or anything like
Well,
that.
not fire, well, occupancy.
Like
the number of kids
on
on
the
the
bigger
board.
weight rooms, I saw some of the weight rooms, they're comparable. Pagodas is.
Now, my question is, were they limited to the amount of students in the room at one time?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So you did, okay.
So from 3 to 4:30 is an open gym, for example.
So if there were 100 kids who wanted to go in this room, they could?
Sure.
Oh. Thank you.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
I know when we did our tour this past year, we were there when the football team was working out, and I found it to be very coordinated. So the coaches must have them doing specific, yeah. So they're coordinating. Like there was kids doing things out in the hallway as much as working in the. So I don't even know if you can have a student that's not part of the team at that time to even.
Well, why does it have to be at the same time? Like, can't we?
No, I'm just using that as an example.
Right, but if the football team practices from 3 to 4, can't we do open from 4 to 5 kind of deal? Like, why does it have to impede? If the concern is the number of students in the room or trying to coordinate with the coaches, we just pick a different time.
You also
We
got
also
health
have
and
to find
insurance.
somebody-
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, we have to,
The fines are gonna
obviously
sit there
have to
from 4 to 5
find
every day
something. Yeah.
for $30. That's what our stipend basically is. It's a 30 approximately.
Mr. Circle, what if 100
33,
people decide to play football?
The site
What's
supervisor.
that?
What if 100 people decide to play
Well,
football?
if there was a limit, again, due to occupancy and fire codes, as Mr. Scarra just said, there may be some kids doing sprints or whatever in the hallway, an X amount of kids and their children that need to be abided by because of code, because of insurance issues. You have to do that, because if someone gets hurt, we're liable.
The fire code is for the entire building, not for each room, correct?
Well, I don't, I
There is an
won't
occupancy
comment
per
on that.
room.
Hmm?
There is an occupancy.
Yeah,
per room.
absolutely, it has to be.
There is. I don't know the number.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time, just trying to put the facts out.
Not sure, but yeah,
That's
that's
all.
fine.
Exactly.
Anyone else have any other questions? Go ahead.
Question for you. I mean, is it beneficial for all of the sports and all of the students to possibly look into if there was a strength and conditioning coach along with the regular coaches that were in there, and then when the coaches would go take their team to the field, then the strength and conditioning coach would stay in there if it was open, possibly to other students. Again, to me, the rub is going to be, if you're a certified strength and conditioning coach, are you going to go want to sit in there for $30 an hour? I don't know who you're going to get to do that, but I mean, I understand the point. If it could be open to other students to go in there, but it definitely needs somebody in there to supervise. I know too, the volleyball team goes in there when they're training. The softball team goes in there when they're training. When it's not their season, sometimes they go in there to use that room.
So Bruce, if it's not their season, are they going in as a team with their coach? Are they going in there unsupervised?
Nobody's in there.
No, coach has to be in there with them.
So they're
It's not an
coaches,
official practice, it's just.
but they're there with a coach?
Yeah. Nobody's in there unsupervised.
So really, if they're playing a sport and the coach wants to do it, it's not an issue. It's the kids that are
Correct.
not playing sports or the kids who have coaches who don't want to do it.
Correct. I would say that's accurate.
Mr. Guido?
Yes.
I know that we have a cap on the number of clubs we can have as per the contract.
There
We
is a
don't
cap.
have because that sounds like it would be probably the most organized option because they would have set days.
Right.
But I think we're at the cap.
So
for
you're
clubs.
100% correct. There is a cap on our clubs, and there are actually some clubs that are running
Right,
based on donation, not because we're paying for them,
because we can't.
because we can't add additional clubs. You're right, the clubs is 18 total, I think is the number in the contract, so we can't exceed that, and we are at the cap at this point.
Because then they could preset one day per, or whatever it could be, and then that person would get paid the club stipend, but we can't, that's not.
Correct, we have to eliminate a club in order to have that.
Or have one of the existing clubs work out. No.
The drone club, you're now one of the laborers.
No, it's a dilemma that you can't add any clubs for the contract.
I'll use Riverdale as an example. We go wrestle every summer, and there's a summer schedule at Riverdale for hang up on the weight room for anyone who wants to come in. And they set the schedule for like 3 days a week. They different times. I guess they have. I guess they separate boys and girls. So I mean, the schools do it. I mean, it can be done. And I think it's just what we're doing is we're giving the kids in our school the same opportunity that pretty much every other school that I've seen has.
Anyone else before I comment? Mr. Smith, or can I call you Chris? Sure. First, I want to thank you for your time and your presentation. You obviously put a little time and effort into this, did some investigation, so I appreciate that. The board appreciates that. Gave us a lot of information here. A couple things that I would be curious about that might help further the conversation along. If you'd like to do a little bit more research, I think the rest of the board would be inquisitive about this as well, is if you could come up with some sort of numbers, just about, even if it's an approximate, how many students are interested in utilizing either weight, whether it's for lifting weights, using the treadmills, whatever the case might be. What approximate times, early evening, this is something that probably wouldn't work past 9, 10 o'clock at night. I mean, again, just, there's a lot of logistics involved here. You've made some good points. The board members obviously have some good points. We obviously have to give our athletic director a chance to check this out. Mr. Spiro's going to have to go back and look at some things. A lot of moving parts here. We certainly couldn't give you an answer tonight.
I know.
But we're going to have to talk about this amongst ourselves and get some more information. But if you could get some additional information on your end to help us
I
along.
guess the student numbers would be short of hauling the high school. The student numbers, I guess, we would have. What comes first? Do we open the room first, or do we find out how many kids are going to go? I submit that we open the room first and see who goes there. If it doesn't work, then I know my son went early morning. Hitting at 6 a.m. There wasn't a lot of people coming, but there was a handful that went. But I guess we, like I said, I submit that we have to open the room first to see who comes there, and then make a decision after a quarter or a semester.
It's easier said than done to just open the room, because we obviously have to make an investment, hire that personnel, pay the stipend, whatever, and then if it doesn't pan out, then we have to go with another plan. So, I'm not saying we can't do that, but again, it's logistics. There's a lot of planning involved here. We're going to take everything you gave us into consideration. We'll talk about it further, and either Mr. Spirito, you'll get back to him,
Sure.
or Mr. Mazzaka maybe.
Sure.
But we'll stay in contact with you, and if you get any additional information, please forward it to us. Anybody else have any questions before we move on? Good to go? Anything else for us, Chris?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All righty, moving on. General comments and questions from the board related to the school district, starting down there by Anthony. You got anything?
No, we're good.
Okay. Tanya?
I'm good.
Lou? Mike? Bruce?
Yeah, I just have one general comment. Last night was the sports awards night, and I think the lacrosse team was 11-4. This is only the 7th year they've been in existence, and they pointed out in the conversation to the parents that although we might have 40 and 50 kids that come out, some of the schools have 60, 80, 100 kids that come out for lacrosse, and we're competing with them. And it was
I
7.
think we have 20-something kids. It was not, it was 20-something versus like Wayne Hills that has 8.
Yeah, I forget the exact number, but the point.
Point taken.
But what I wanted to point out, and I actually told the coaches afterwards, is, I mean, it was 7 years ago, we were voting on this, it passed by 1 vote at the time, 5-4. And the main reason for keeping lacrosse here, believe it or not, was not necessarily the sports part of it, but every single top academic student was leaving to go play lacrosse. Most of the kids that were leaving were in like the top 20 of the class. So it was a very close vote at the time, and some people wanted the money spent on other things, but I'm glad that at the time we made the decision we made, because now 7 years later, the program is, flourishing, and it's amazing, even if it's 20 kids, 30 kids, whatever number of the kids that came out, you're competing against much bigger schools, and in a short period of time, they've had a lot of success, and then with the youth league in town and all the kids that are involved in it coming up, it's going to be like a sustainable program, and keep doing well. So kudos to the lacrosse team, and kudos to the board at the time. That, like I said, it was a 5-4 vote. It wasn't a 9-0 vote. It passed by just 1 vote to actually happen.
Yeah, great. Alex?
Sure, thank you. A couple comments. First, for student rep Elizabeth Fitter, just want to congratulate her, commend her for her professionalism. Seems like we always get the cream of the crop here from for our student reps. Send us a postcard from USC. We're excited for you, the weather and all. Also, the roller coaster project. My house is ground zero for one of those projects, and over the years, I've been seeing the presentations here, gone to the high school and see the courtyard displays, but you don't get to appreciate the value add until you actually have it in your own house. You see, I think one of the out of the different components that you get from the effort, one of them is the most important one maybe is the team effort. Right, I had the opportunity to graduate from boot camp a while back, from the Marine Corps. My boot camp, my class was the last one before the Crucible. From then on, every class that's ever graduated has to do the Crucible. It's like 50-something hours of them going out, and the key, the catch there is that it's got to be as a team. So I think the team component of that project is, what's maybe the biggest value add, right? So, kudos to them. Also, the spring concert, phenomenal. Another year they, knock it out of the ballpark. I believe Mrs. Breeder shared that the chorus class is actually increasing significantly next year, so.
It's doubling in size, the chorus class, so.
Bruce is
We've
jumping
doubled.
out of his chair.
Doubling in size next year. I think we're up to 40 students, so it's growing.
Fantastic.
It's great.
And the last one is for the referendum. Those parents, those individuals those citizens that believe that it is beneficial, that we should move that referendum forward. Just for a point of reference, Glen Rock only passed the referendum by 50 votes, so that's a very, very small margin of error.
Close for comfort.
Yeah, so spread the word. I know summer peters along, and then we kind of focus on other things, but let's keep that top of mind. That's it.
I'd like to piggyback off of Bruce's comment as one of the other board members who fully supported lacrosse, and as the now new head coach of the rec girls lacrosse team, I just want to say they're coming for us. So we have to be prepared that the program is growing, and it was a great decision. Listen, we know that we lose children all the time, and it is primarily for athletics. My son's on the 5-6 team, and those boys are already talking about it. So we did the right thing, and I stand by the decision. Secondly, I would like to just share, I accompanied the Roosevelt third grade to the Environmental Center at the Meadowlands on their field trip on May, I believe it was 10th. And I am just always so pleasantly surprised by the students and their positive attitudes and how well-mannered they are and how professional our teachers are. And it's just, it really does make, it puts everything into perspective when you go to those things. It really does. Same thing with Youth Night here. Just the high school students that we were encountered with, I mean, they're just unbelievable children, and it makes these meetings and everything that we do worth it. The roller coaster project, this is the 7th year, Bruce and I've been here watching them, and just amazing.
I just want to echo the entire board's sentiments. Elizabeth, you've done a fantastic job representing the student body and keeping us in the know. And I also want to wish you lots of luck at USC and in your future endeavors. I'm very proud of you. Very well. New business. Abby, sorry.
I'm good, thank you.
Alex? Bruce? No. Mike? Lou? No. Connie? Ant? Turn the corner, Ant. Old business. No?
Ditto.
Go ahead, Mike.
Since it's on the agenda, I'm going to take a moment and say thank you to Elizabeth. Since it is technically old business. And I'm going to wish you all the best of luck.
Okay. Bruce? No. Alex? Abby? All right. We're going to move on. Private session. Be resolved that the Hawthorne Board of Education convenes an executive session to discuss exempt matters pertaining to 1 through 10. 9. Be it further resolved that it is anticipated that the executive session will be for 45 minutes in duration and that public action may or may not be taken. Be it further resolved that the minutes of the executive session will be made available upon a determination by the board that the disclosure of the minutes will not detrimentally affect any right or interest of the board, and need for confidentiality no longer exists. Can I have a motion to go into private?
Motion. Second.
All right, discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Polino?
Yes.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Palouse?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Ms. Sanford?
Yes.
Ms. Scarra?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.